Hello, this is Daniel. Today I'll be talking about Bitcoin fees. Now, say you have your blockchain.info wallet and you want to send some Bitcoin. So you tap on the Send tab and say I want to send 1 millibitcoin to somebody else. You'll notice that there is a fee tab, and by default it's asking me to pay up 0.67 millibitcoin for a regular priority, which will basically have my transaction confirmed in the blockchain in over an hour. So say you're in a rush and you want to send your Bitcoin transaction to confirm as fast as possible, you can tap on the fee tab and then you can select a priority fee, which will confirm your transaction in less than an hour. Whenever you send a Bitcoin transaction to somebody else, you broadcast it to the network, and this is processed by what we call a miner, which is basically a specialized computer that processes your Bitcoin transaction and secures the network. Because these miners have electric costs, they expect to be economically compensated. So the higher the fee you pay, the more incentivized a miner is to include your transaction on their block versus somebody else's transaction. Sometimes when the Bitcoin network is congested with a lot of transactions, we get into a sort of fee market where you have to send a very high fee so that your transaction gets included in the blockchain, and then your payment is basically received and processed on the other side. Now, some wallets will actually allow you to specify a custom fee. So you go back to the fee tab and then you can select custom, and it will allow you to specify a fee, and this is measured in satoshis per byte. Now, what are these satoshis per byte, you may ask? For every Bitcoin transaction you receive, you have it stored in what we call an input. When you want to send a transaction, then you basically need to use the inputs of the Bitcoin you receive to add up to the requested amount. The fewer the inputs, then the less fee you need to pay. To view this, we can go back to, say, a regular fee, and notice that we're back to the 0.67 millibitcoin for sending just 1 millibitcoin. Now, if I want to send a higher fee, say for instance 4 millibitcoin, you'll notice that the fee increased. This is because it's using more inputs to basically get to the 4 millibitcoin that I request I want to send out. Let's take a look at this in the blockchain.info website so you can see how this affects the confirmation time and the fees. Now, for this transaction, we see that we have one input of 4.38 Bitcoin to pay just 1 Bitcoin. You'll see that the size is 226 bytes, which corresponds to this input being used. And then the fees per byte are about 600 satoshis per byte, which is higher than the 400 satoshis per byte that the wallet asked me for a priority fee. So the sender paid a total of about 1.3 millibitcoin. And because the fee was so high, this transaction was included just 1 minute after they broadcast it to the network. Now, if we compare it to this other one, you'll see that we have now 2 inputs being used in order to send the requested amount. The size increased. Now it's not 226, it's 438 because we're using 2 inputs instead of just 1. And you'll notice that the sender paid about the same amount of satoshis per byte than the previous transaction, about 600. And it was also included just 1 minute after it was broadcasted to the network. Now, because this transaction used 2 inputs instead of 1, the total fee is about twice as much as 2.6 millibitcoin, which was paid for the same satoshis per byte. So you can see how having a lot of small inputs can actually make you pay a higher fee when making a Bitcoin transaction. Now, if we take a look at this last example, you'll notice that we have a lot more inputs, which add up to a size of about 1,100 bytes. But the fee that the sender paid is actually 10 satoshis per byte, which is a lot less than the previous transactions. And because of this transaction was included a little over 3 days after it was broadcasted to the network. So depending on the urgency you have to send the funds to somebody, you may want to consider adjusting the fees. I hope that this video was helpful in understanding more about Bitcoin fees and how to manage them. Thanks a lot for watching.